All right. And welcome everybody. After after our conversation last week, a number of people asked if Kate and I would be willing to do part two of this conversation. And so today we we're gonna continue where we left off last week. So Kate, I'm glad to have you back with me.
Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's definitely been a week, and I'm not sure what it's been like on your end, and I want to hear what's been happening for you. But I've had a lot of people reach out and either ask me a bunch of questions about how do we move forward or where do we go from here. I have people reach out just saying, I'm sorry. Some people are reaching out saying, I don't know what to say, but let me know how I can help. And so there's a whole range of feelings that I'm feeling. Um, and most of them have been really positive and optimistic. But there is also still some skepticism for me because I think it's one thing to say it and to perform, but it's another to actually take action and to do it consistently. And because of some of the work that I've done around change behavior and transformation, like it is a marathon and a long-term game versus the short-term thing. So I think there has to be ways for people to do it in integrity, but also find ways to do it sustainably. So I would love to hear a little bit about what's been happening on your end.
I love that. It's like the marathon versus the sprint.
Yeah.
So I think in how I'm witnessing what I'm experiencing in an area that obviously like you and I are having very different experiences in this. And there's many reasons. Some of those reasons are obvious and some of them are less than obvious, in terms of our paths. But when I think about the energy around proving, like aside from what's occurring and the marathon, like feeling the, just in how like the social experiment of this and how we show up, and everybody is deciding how to show and what to engage.
Yeah.
And noticing like what type of action is it, then what am I going to do then with this new information or this new awareness or the passion and the as my values are shifting, as I'm unlearning some things, and like what are those tangible things? Well, everybody is evidently an expert on this now, which is amazing. Like I'm thinking of other areas that we need instant experts. Like how to do that. So there's like a surge through the pandemic with everybody going virtually already, like just in terms of how brains receive energy and the neurodiversity even inside of that, like how we receive energy, how we output and input with those levels of passion, and still keeping your small humans alive, still connecting with your partners, your family, and that hierarchy of needs inside of here. Like I'm trying to stay connected to that at the same time and being aware of that, and how I can't assume that I understand what that is for anybody. And I just have to be in the moment of like what's here. And so it's like been a roller coaster in terms of what's wanted and needed in those moments, and staying connected to my own soul, like also through that process. And without staying high road all the time, which was how I was raised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That it's interesting to hear all of the different pieces, because obviously everybody's life is different, but where we have the overlap is how are we maintaining our family life? How are we maintaining our work life? How are we maintaining our personal life? And that does look different for everybody. And some of the conversations that have come up have been around how do I deal with rage or anger and some of those negative feeling emotions.
Absolutely.
what you just said is so beautiful. Like, you can't stay on the high road all the time because sometimes you just don't want to, and sometimes it's really difficult. And so I realized for myself, I have to give myself like permission and space to say, all right, I'm tapping out. Like, I sent a bunch of friends some messages yesterday saying, I'm done with race relations for the day. I think I'm just gonna go and do something else, because I was getting so caught up in the wave of emotions, from anger and rage to sadness to hopelessness to optimism. And I'm like, I can't do that. And so I think it's really important for us, as we're navigating this whole experience, to also find ways to make sure we stay connected with ourselves and stay connected with our families and our colleagues. And I'm very clear that I have friends and connections and supporters of all of all races and backgrounds. And so I also don't want to get caught up in the us versus them mentality either, because that's not healthy, and that doesn't move things forward. I think when I find myself getting in those moments, I have to really take a step back and say, all right, I can either feel myself getting defensive, or I can feel myself wanting to get into attack mode. How do I just like decompress and regulate myself so that I can make sure that I'm still present and engaged in the conversation in a way that's going to be productive, in a way that's going to continue moving things forward. So for you, what? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, like,
Sure.
because I'm really curious. I'm just like, there's so much I don't know that's in my blind spot,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in that space. So I'm just super sad for a moment. I'm just like noticing like my, I don't know if it's compassion but it's like, I hate that you have to navigate that right now. I'm just like, so I hate that you have to navigate that. And I'm inspired by the self-regulation, which is what you and I teach people. But there's like the self-organization and the self-regulating of emotion, of task, of ego, of soul. Like, it is the intersect of all of those that has been the body of your work, that because not everyone can navigate. And that's also, there's a level of privilege that we both have in that space, in terms of intellectual privilege, and emotional privilege of having decided to process from a certain age, or whatever the training that we went in. So I'm very aware that if I was policing anything in my, because we all have a judger, all of us. So it's like, if I am policing anything, or like, I'm really trying to stay curious and neutral and observe what those things are. But I'm very aware also that all of those years of training and coaching has given me a leg up in that, and that not everyone can navigate with the clarity. Not everyone, it's terrifying for most people and they either want to numb it, they want to act out, which right now is appropriate. Like, there's like, it's like, I'm not judging any of those choices that are in there, but I'm like, not everybody can self-regulate because of the trauma stories. And there has not been equity and access to the type of coaching that you and I have moved into. So I'm just like, just present with it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think for me, privilege is a very interesting word, because we all have privilege. I have privilege as a male. You have privilege as a white woman, and so there's a balance of it. Because I think for me, when I hear people talk about privilege, sometimes it's this feeling of, you should do this for me because you can do that. And yes, there's elements of that, but I think what's more important is the awareness that you have it, or the awareness that I have it in certain circumstances. And that's where the dance and the nuance becomes really, really important. And I was just telling Brandon on a call we had last week that right now I really think the year of 2020 is about empathy and connection and compassion. Yeah. And that's really, you might not fully understand it, but you're a human being. So you know it at some level, in some situation, or in some capacity. And so I would love to get your take on what privilege means for you, and how you view it, but also how you are looking at like using yours moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So this has been like, it's a journey in knowing there's lots of ways to unpack privilege. And, so I'm really kind of even, coming into this, like I'm probably saying all this wrong. I can't see the comments, but but please, I'm welcome to give me the feedback. It's totally okay, because it's just a growth curve. I'm just jumping in. Like this, I'm definitely not going to perform well at this.
I'm in the pool with you. Don't worry, and we'll figure it out.
There's no right way to say this. I'm not an expert on any of this. Just like me, just preface, like literally not an expert on any of things. How do I do it? What does that look like? Is there any value in me sharing that? Possibly. So like how do I do that? I have, as somebody who's on the spectrum and has physical disability also. So like there's the space. My privilege harms others, and my privilege has harmed myself from seeing what's possible. So it's like I'm still unpacking. This is what people think. They think you're going to go do the privilege work and look at what your privileges are, so you can stop harming others. And that's my number one. It's like, yes, to do no harm, but we are going to do harm because we're humans. Yeah. But there's this level of yes, to do that. But also what I think I don't hear necessarily a ton of conversation of, unless you like get deep dive into a program, it's the privilege, the ego is harming all of us. And so I'm harming myself with it as well. So there's so many layers to that. And I'm not an expert or a social scientist to be able to like tease that apart. So literally going to do that really badly. My layman's version of that, laywoman, is the blind spot curiosity, that like one distinction for me of remembering that the way our human eyeball is made, there is a optic nerve that hits the back of that eyeball, and there are no rods and cones in that spot where that optic nerve hits the ball. None. Literally blind, physically blind. And that the revelation of that in the science space and in my life is just to remember that, so that my listening can change and I can become aware. I'm not going to undo all my privilege. I will always have privilege. Yeah. But I will, if I can just remember and not be afraid of missing it, or listen in a way that I'm aware that I don't have a solution. I don't have a fix for anybody. I'm just like a human being having an experience here, a soul having a human experience, where I really don't know much about much except my own experience. Yeah. And that allows me to, just like, I feel like that one space helps me to move in the world, to just be able to sort of turn the volume down where I'm missing it. Like, what's the impact I want to have? Sometimes I got to look at privilege, and sometimes I got to look at some of these other areas where I hold back, and it's volume control for me in terms of the impact and the legacy that I want to leave. So I've dedicated my life to helping people make friends with that blind spot of like, hey, this is like literally how your eyeball's made. I'm sorry that you don't think you have an optic nerve functioning there, but my life's work is about helping people see 360 and unpacking that. And I hope that makes a mark. And I'm going to tune up. I'm going to name things more boldly now, and what I've learned in the last year and what I've learned in the last 2 weeks. I'm going to name things more boldly and name those privileges and name how, and ask. I have a lot of forgiveness to ask for. I mean, to be quite frank, and there's generational stuff that I don't even know what to do with, but I'm just like, yeah, I'll walk through that door. I will go do that, so that I'm doing it with my children. I'm doing it with my marriage, and I'm doing it with my family. And I don't, will it ever be enough? It's like, that's not the goal, but the goal is just to like you said, like I'm in the pool, I'm inviting my family in the pool. Some of them I'm demanding into the pool. So you don't get to vote, get in. You're doing it wrong.
Well, one of the things that I really, really just appreciate about you is you're you're so willing to go into the uncomfortable, where I think um, human beings in general just don't want to go there because they don't know what to do with it, or they don't know how to move through it. And it's less about like trying to fix it and change it and move it, and more just around being with it.
Yeah.
And I really think there's a lot of power in being with discomfort because you get to ask new questions. And one of the pieces we were talking about before we started was um, the work that you do in Into the Looking Glass. And
Yeah.
so can you talk a little bit about like what's the intention behind that? And um, let's have some conversations around some of the work that happens within that.
So Into the Looking Glass is a 6-week program. That's going to be 8 weeks now because I'm adding a new module on privilege that wasn't in there in the last 4 years. So like there's more, and another one that's more on visioning, like taking vision and legacy to a new level. Like what's the mark that incorporates that? So it's going to grow, you know, as I grow, it grows. But essentially it's this idea of like Alice in Wonderland is like, even though now like it's what a horrible story. Like I've had some training and I'm like, I don't know that he was an awesome human being and this is messed up. But I used to act out Alice in Wonderland as a kid and I was 8 and that made me want to go into theater and go write plays. Like it had enough juicy stuff in there so that I loved it. Yeah. So when I made my program, I recognized my ability to go decide to take myself on. There's a choice point. All marketing that I do as a marketer, as a coach, I just help people come to the choice point of the moment. So what is the choice? What's the intention? And so Into the Looking Glass is like this, take the cap off the Kool-Aid of consciousness and awareness for women entrepreneurs. Yeah. And I'm creating a second version for millennial women, younger millennial women, because they have different pain points, but they want to get it. They want to get it earlier. So when I think of what did it take for me to heal my physical body from the highest pain limbical index, and I'm still like, obviously not, there's no 100%, but it's like, what did it take for me to move from permanently disabled into where I am now? It was these 6 distinctions, or now 8. And so the first one being just like this identity conversation, then examining like self-trust and looking at instead of like how trust capital, like you and I, like that's part of it. Like trust is such an interesting thing to unpack, even in terms of like how we show up in the world, but understanding that there are things that we trust ourselves to do all of the time, like in viewing it, like looking to what is already working, what's inspiring, what's juicy, what's, you know, what lights you up, like looking to that and seeing what that self-trust looks like. If you can start there, instead of always going to the negative first, there's like this bridge. And then at that point, when you become that aware around that, like you got to go through the glass. Like now that I've done that and I've examined this, now there's a choice. Do I want to go see what I can't see from here in this other reality? Do I want to go see beyond this? So it's like you literally have to step on the desk and go through the mirror and experience your life, like view the parts of you that are not so pretty, the parts of you that are less flattering. We all are trying to like hold up this image into the world. This is how I want it to be. This is my brand. And I'm like, yeah. And over here, it's quite an amazing show. Yeah. And I've never met a human that isn't running both of those. Like, you know, there's both of that, but am I willing to go through and see how others see me? What's even the internal conversation about deciding to go and do that intimately? And my clients have to mail letters out to people, like literally we're going to see it. Wow. And the more they send, you know, the more, like I had somebody send 34 to ask these questions, but it's just this commitment to go see. And it's not like a red pill, blue pill thing. Yeah. It's really just, am I willing to go see 360, to go see what I can't see. And then I can have all the other conversations. But there is a choice point, and it's up, especially with white women right now. Like, it's up. You got to see. Do you want to see?
Yeah.
So that, yeah, I don't know if I even answered your question, but
no, you did. And it's interesting that you brought up trust, because I'm realizing that, you have in your own trust, self-trust, internal trust, and then you have the trust of others.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's happening right now is we're having to figure out where we trust ourselves and where we don't trust ourselves, but then we're having to look at what does it actually mean to build trust with people that we haven't had good relationships with. And how do you do that?
Yeah.
And how do you do it consistently? Because you build it. And so there has to be conversation and work happening on both ends. And although you might want trust to continue to grow and deepen, at some point there's the potential of it to be broken. And then once it is, how do you come back to it? And one of the things that I wrote this morning is like, everything for me is a practice. So communication is a practice. Building trust is a practice. These Facebook Lives are like, everything is just a practice. And some days we're going to do it really well, and other days it's going to be a mess. But that's part of the practice as well. And I think when we enter the conversation and our interactions, we get to bring that to the table too, along with curiosity, because it's not about getting it right. It's just about taking the action and saying, okay, I'm going to give a little bit today, and here's how I'm going to show up, and this is what I can do. And, I just have to trust that it's enough for right now, and I'm doing the best that I can do.
Yeah, trust is it's such an interesting thing when even looking at when you're collaborating to move your business forward. And I think I love the Clifton Strengths stuff inside of this, because we always talk about designing alliances. I trust myself more when I'm partnered with others. So there's something in this connection for me also. If I'm on my own and I'm an island, I actually break down trust really fast. And it's having that human connection, and learning how to let it in. Because we get so independent as we're moving these forward. There's plenty of danger out there for whatever, there's lots of opportunities to get it wrong. So there's that vulnerability of just embracing the vulnerability as you go. Stop judging your shit show and just keep going. But the capital that you build within that, sometimes it's repeat exposure. If it's social, like showing up in your business, repeat. You build some grit inside of that space. You get used to showing up a little bit. And then thinking in, when you're designing alliances, if you haven't owned your story yet, the light and the dark, you haven't owned that yet, it's harder to build trust. It's harder. So it's just so it's and then you might feel yourself like cat and mouse with it. You throw something out there, then you wince, oh man, you take a risk with it saying something authentically, or it's just super messy while you're doing it. And you can just tell somebody's at their edges of I don't know what's going to happen, but here's my truth. But if you keep doing that and bringing that truth forward, whatever it is, or bring the lostness out, or that vulnerable side out, and then you see what happens. We still have to show to some capacity for that trust capital to really build stably.
I'm still thinking about mine, but what's been the most difficult part about this experience? I guess the most uncomfortable to navigate or find your foothold.
You mean this week?
It could be this week, but it could just be in general.
In general.
Yeah.
I think I deconstructed. I've done a lot of deconstruction over the last 8 years in terms of ideologically making a healthy relationship, spiritual relationship in a spiritual context. That worked for me. That was still built in some things that were familiar. Because at first I'm just like, I'm throwing it all out, like I'm done with you. And then I'm like, well, but then I was like, I missed something. I was like, well, I still like, well, that song's okay.
Yeah.
Like, or like, you know, like that's it. And so finding like, where are my people? I can't, like, if I'm an outlier now all the time, because I've deconstructed down to the point where I just always feel like an outlier and I don't really have that full community. Because I'm like, I want to make sure I'm aware. And then you just like pull yourself out and then you don't commit anywhere.
Yeah.
Because you're like, and whether that's still that you know, it could be, I don't even know, like if it's just still looking for like the one community, and that's such a myth. Like there's no one community or one way of thinking it. But that, like, just embracing that part of me that is my ability to see from a distance and to zoom out when I need to be curious, also has prevented me from knowing how to bring the passion when the passion's warranted, and like, and not knowing like, where are my people that I do get to be passionate like that with, or where is that helpful, you know, where can I just be off the cuff, or like, so there's like, I dismantled so many things that I think I'm still kind of navigating what my own beliefs are in that. And that means, because there's more to face of unhealthy beliefs as well.
Yeah.
How about for you? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, as you were talking, it became clearer and clearer. I realized that part of my experience, because of my pain and my trauma around my sexuality and feeling pushed away, I realized that I distanced myself a lot from the Black community because I never fit in, or because I always got teased. And so it's like, all right, well, I don't feel like I'm safe in that community, or I matter in that community, or I belong to that community. And so it was like, all right, let me just cut that piece off. And now with everything happening, what I realize is, oh, I really love my Blackness, and I want to step into more of that, because it's beautiful and rich and fun and good. It's really, really good. And so this, particularly in the past week, it's forced me to really look at my stuff around that, because I don't fully, I don't want to go to the angry, rageful, militant side, but I get it. And I also don't want to let privilege and horrific actions from the white community off the hook either. And so there's been this tug of war back and forth between how do I continue to stand with my community and speak my truth, but without discrediting the humanity of white people. And so that's where I really had to practice my compassion muscle, because it really is forcing me to look for people's humanness and also recognize my own in the process. And when I think about what happened for me within the Black community, I realize, yeah, I don't agree with what people said to me or did to me in the past, but I also have to find ways to stand with myself and to speak up for myself when I need to, and to speak my truth when I need to, in a community that I want to desperately be a part of. And so it's messy. Yeah. It's really, really messy. And it's also very beautiful, because I didn't realize how disconnected I felt until recently. And now I'm reestablishing that connection for myself. But also it's more authentic. It's not, oh, I'm doing this because I should, or I'm doing this out of some sort of obligation.
What could, like, what can I, not like there's something I could say or whatever, but like, we're friends and colleagues, but like, what does it look like in that level of support? Or
Mm,
how do I, like, cause there's like part of, I've really attempted to decenter my voice in the last year. Like I don't want to deliver my work the way that I did, because it's just like I'm tired of it anyway.
yeah.
But there's also like a space of making room of, I don't even know. I can't unpack all that right now in 2 minute conversation. So like I'm sure I'm quite doing it wrong, but there's like this part of me that's like I have learning to do to work with you beside you in that space that enhances and helps you elevate. Or I don't know if it's, there's just always that little bit of a dance
Yeah.
around that. So anything you would want to share for, what do you want
Yeah.
your white colleagues to know?
I I think for for me, it's really um, this idea of, because I'm a human being, I also have something to bring to the table. And it might not look like what you're used to, um, but it's simply my experience. And so I think it's really about, how do you make space for another human being's experience, especially when they look different than you. And I think so often we get into this habit of, because it doesn't look like mine, I'm going to dismiss it, versus, oh, I don't get it, but I can respect it, um, and allow you to bring it to the table, simply for the fact that you're a human being on this planet. And I think that's the beginning of the conversation. I think the next part that I would want people, that I would want my white colleagues to notice, like, where can we find the overlap? Because there's a lot of overlap in what we do, not just in our work, but in our experiences as human beings. And so we get to say, oh, we have this connection and that connection, and it that's exciting. And I think where the richness and the expansiveness of the conversation comes is when we then say, all right, here's where we had the overlap, but here's how our experiences different or differed. And this is what I got out of the situation. Let me hear what you got out of the situation. Oh, this is what you, oh, wow, I never even thought about that. And when you think about cognitive diversity or any kind of diversity, for me, I think of it in terms of, how do I help expand the conversation? How do I help expand the experience? How do I help make it better? And so I need my my white colleagues' perspectives, because it's different than mine, and because you all are thinking about things a lot differently than me. And so I can't expand when I'm working in a bubble.
Mm. I can't expand when I'm working in a bubble. Like that's, yeah, like, it's interesting to, even as coaches in that space, and, with all the people that we've helped grow businesses together, and again, I just want to, I'm staring at a hummingbird. Sorry. I'm super distracted, but like, oh my God, it's so cool. I wish I could share, but there's like this construct of understanding how curiosity works, what innovation is. It's like that we've talked about this, like the vision and the reality being this tension band, right? Some rubber band, you're pulling on the vision, reality, the gravity wants to pull you down. And that gravity is made up with a lot of stuff, including injustice. The gravity is different for you than the gravity is for me. And so respecting that to open my listening, and also knowing that when you and I both hit that, whatever that tension point is, we have for our personal visions, different tension points, different shows. Like, even though some of our strengths are the same,
Yeah.
the show is going to look differently there. The
Yeah.
hierarchy of needs may be different. What pulls us out is going to be, and this is a human experience, but if we're really in support of that mark that Donnie's here to make in the world, we can also be in support of the mark Kate wants to leave in the world. And that's in this space. But like in this moment, I'm not worried about Kate. Like, I'm like, what's Donnie's vision, and what does broadening like if we broaden and hold hands together underneath your tension right now, like what does that look like so that you can make it through this moment and still move your business forward? That's not probably why we're on here, but that's how I view it. I'm not doing it in like shapes and circles, so I'm sure everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. But there's like an arming up, like arm to arm when that tension hits. Like, how do we increase the connection? What connection feels healthy to you? What does that look like? I have no idea what that would look like for you, in that. But then you still get to move. You don't have to stop going to where you said you wanted to go just because we're having a cultural where there's a shift occurring. Yay.
Yeah.
Yes, finally. Oh my gosh. Finally. I can't even imagine that. And also, you still have goals. You still need to support your family. You can't stop. So that's where I'm wondering. And you don't have to answer that live on Facebook. But I think everybody, it seems relevant.
Yeah, it's a huge question.
It is.
And I love
more than a cup of coffee.
I love the visual that you had of being arm in arm, because that, for me, that's what it is. This isn't me wanting people to diminish themselves in order for me to stand up and shine. I think what's valuable about having non-Black colleagues who are doing important work and who have big platforms is that you can leverage that to amplify the message, but in you helping amplify another person, that's not diminishing you in some way. And I think so many people become afraid of, like, it has to be either or versus, I'm allowing someone to share their voice, and by me making space for other people to share their voice, I'm also shining because I'm becoming that beacon for people to know that, hey, it's not just me. It's Donnie and Bridget and Jerome and Lynn and all these other people too, who are doing these incredible things. And so I love that visual just helped me land so much for myself, even though I can't fully articulate it right now. It's like, oh yeah, I'm moving in the right direction.
I think the human connection and designing, like being intentional, like who are you most creative with? Like who can you fall apart with? Who can you go get resources you don't have? And like we need an interdisciplinary, flow, a diverse flow of partners that we can call on, for those moments in tension. Like I know when I've had a lot of neural activity, a lot of seizures this month, and they come quarterly, different times. I've had to make some different choices around what the digital input is, because I think it's impacted my physical health.
Yeah. And
I know there are people who can sit with me at my bedside when I can't. I'm like, I got no wisdom for you right now. like I need to shut it down. And there's like people that can hold me in that moment, like in the dignity of when you can't show up in the full capacity. Yeah. And as somebody who, like, I've just been on that journey at different, I didn't even want to sit with myself, when it occurred, back in 2004, like I didn't know how to sit with myself in my own suffering or in my own pain I just wanted to get rid of it, solve it, be a hero, go get me a hero, someone save me, and then you have to learn to have your own back. You go through some of those, right? Like this is this is the hero's journey. And then you get bitter, because that can work for a while. I can leverage to my vision on bitterness all day. And that's how you burn out in the hustle of an entrepreneur. So the only thing that has worked has been increasing the diverse connections that can hold, and having more compassion for the version of me that, is physically incapacitated, mentally incapacitated. And I think that's a human thing. But I think we're going to find, as this level of self-awareness, that your Life Maximizer program it really does help people figure that out along that way and create. And would you say it's like a capacity builder?
Yeah. I think it's a capacity builder. I think one of the big pieces of it is simply about consideration. And what we talked about earlier is, can you simply make space for another human being, especially when they're different from you?
Yeah.
And some people love it. Some people hate it, because you're like, I have to put all my judgments and resentments and biases and everything else to the side. And it's really, really hard. It's hard because you just want them to get it, or you just want them to come to your side of the fence. But what's also happening is they're having, take out race relations.
Sure.
Anytime you're just trying to get someone to see your perspective, they're having to give up so much of themselves and their programming and their conditioning and beliefs that you're asking a lot of people. You're asking a lot of people. And that's where the compassion piece comes in. And I think that's also part of the reason why it's such a slow process and why people get frustrated, is because it's not about results and efficiency and productivity. It's about building your capacity and compassion for another human being.
And with the cancer coaching, like we talked about in our part 1, and then for me, the social work of that, like when you're sitting with people who are suffering, it's when you have the privilege of that, like to be invited, that's an instant capacity builder. But I don't want us to wait for that anymore. Like, let's not wait for that. Let's not wait for people to die to get serious. Well, cool. Well, this was a great part 2, Donnie.
I loved it. I always, part of the reason why I love our conversation so much is, one, because you just dance with me, and I know we enjoy our dance together. But 2, you're just willing to go to deep places, and it's not always easy or fun or comfortable, but your willingness to just, again, be in the pool with me I think is what a lot of people and a lot of communities are asking right now.
Yeah.
Will you just come in?
Yeah. There's, like, in this moment, for my white women who are watching or are going to tune in, that are curious in the space of what this looks or how my work is evolving in that, I just want to say, like, this is really, not only is it time in that space, but it just, like, once you understand that like this conversation that we had today, everything we've all been longing for in connection is on the other side of this. Like, this isn't us, it's like, but really it just gets so sweet.
Yeah.
So sweet. Like, it's the best pool ever. You got to jump in and just begin the conversation, and just, begin, just come and see, like, go through the looking glass, like, just, begin on that journey, because there is no scarcity here for connection. And yes, I've got more things to lay down, and more things that I've been unaware of, and more generational healing to do. And but I'm here for that. Like, I'm here for that. So thank you, Donnie, for your grace.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I never know how to close these, but it's your show, so
I don't either. I don't either. I just want to say thank you, and thank you for the people who listened in, or who are going to come across the recording. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Soon, yeah.
All right, everybody, have a good day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kate.